and welcome to Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris.
My name is Justin.
And my name is Mike. Today's episode will be going over the new Jason Reitman film written by Diablo Cody, Tully, starring Charlize Theron.
Yep, and if you want to follow along with what we're going to be watching next and send in questions for us to talk about, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can join our Facebook group and talk TV and film with us at facebook.com/groups/casualcinecast, or if you want to email us directly, you can do so at casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
All right, guys, we wanted to go ahead and make a real quick announcement. We are partnered with realoutreach.com, which is a charity organization that tries to gather up enough money to send less privileged kids to the movie theaters. They've already done this once with Avengers Infinity War, and it was a great success, made a lot of kids happy, and it was such a success that they want to do it again with Solo at the end of the month. So go to realoutreach.com. They could always use your help. There's a few more days left to try and help send a bunch of kids to go see Solo.
If you don't want to do that, then I don't know what to say to you.
You're a monster.
You deserve to go see Solo by yourself.
Solo.
Solo.
Yeah, that was good.
Was it?
All right. Yeah, Solo. Anyway, so do you guys want to go into what's on our minds now?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Chris, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I've been watching a lot of TV shows that I've already talked about, like Legion and The Expanse and Westworld. So this week I found this little anime. They're little episodes about 7 minutes long that kind of remind me of Looney Tunes cartoons. It's really interesting. It's about these two kids that sit in the back of the class, and one of them is always fiddling with something, and the other one's worried that they're going to get caught, and it kind of gets pulled into whatever's happening with the one that's always fiddling. And it's just this really short 7-minute thing that's a lot of fun, a lot of imagination goes into it, and kind of really captures what it's like to sit in the back of a class that you're bored in. And the name of it's called Tonari no Seki-kun. I probably butchered that, but it's called The Master of Killing Time. And it's on Crunchyroll. It's available on Crunchyroll to see it. And I would urge you, it's 7 minutes. Go check out the first episode. Justin and I actually watched the first one right before we started this podcast. What did you think of it, Justin?
It was super short and fun. And like you said, it's just like a Looney Tunes sort of length. Nothing too deep or nothing that you're going to have to get invested in. And it's just kind of plain fun watching this kid do stuff and waste time. Or kill time.
How did you discover this?
I just saw like a link to a video on, I think, Facebook or Twitter or something, and I clicked on it. And I just was really interested in it, so I Googled it and found it that way. I'm not a big anime guy, so I don't usually do a lot of that. But in this one, I just clicked on it. It was 7 minutes long, so it wasn't anything that I knew that I was going to have to invest my time into.
How many are there?
I believe there's 21. But I've watched like 8 maybe, and some of them are really fun because they get so elaborate. This kid's doing all these elaborate things on the other side, and she gets pulled into the fantasy of it, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say is if you don't have a Crunchyroll account or whatever, the ads are kind of unbearable. I felt like we had to watch like 5 ads for like a 7-minute video. Very trying on my patience.
Yeah, that is really annoying. Fortunately, you can skip the ad after about 10 seconds, so the Crunchyroll is annoying if you don't have the account.
My girlfriend actually has a Crunchyroll account, so I might look these up tonight, actually.
Yeah, just watch 1 or 2 of them and see what you think. I think they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to be perfect like when I'm trying to watch something like to fall asleep to.
Mm-hmm.
I can just like throw them on and fall asleep at any point, and it's better than throwing a movie on and feeling like I might get caught up in it and accidentally stay awake an extra hour and a half.
Cool. What's that called again?
It's called Tonari no Seki-kun, The Master of Killing Time. So, Mike, what has been on your mind?
Yeah, I've kind of been in the same boat. This week I haven't really watched a whole lot in the way of movies. I've mostly just been continuing some TV shows that I've already talked about in some way, shape, or form on this podcast. I did watch the season premiere of The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, which is like the season 2 premiere, and it's really good. Have you guys watched The Handmaid's Tale at all?
I have not.
No, I haven't. It's one where I know that I'm going to have to build myself up to watch it because it's kind of this heavy drama, and it's not a fun watch, I don't imagine. So yeah, it's one that I'm going to have to like psych myself up for first.
Yeah, it's good. It's got a lot of really good things about it. It's a beautifully filmed show. I think sometimes it could stand to be a little more, I don't know, tactful, maybe a little more subtle in what it's trying to do, but subtlety is definitely not what this show is trying to go for. I think the first episode of season 2, though, is really strong. So if anyone's actually watching this show or watched season 1 and hasn't started season 2 yet, definitely give it a shot. There's like 4 episodes out already, and I've only really seen the first one. But it looks like it's going to be probably a better season. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if they're still adapting the book or if the book was just kind of the jumping off point and then they're in all new territory now. But yeah, no, it works out pretty well. There's not very many Hulu shows, I think, that are actually getting a lot of notoriety. I think this is like their big flagship show.
Yeah, this question might be kind of unrelated to The Handmaid's Tale specifically, but how does Hulu release their shows? Because I've never watched a show on there. Do they release them all at once like Netflix, or do they release week to week?
I think they're doing week to week, which to me is a smarter business model. I don't understand why Netflix does the entire season all at once, like, or at least not for everything. Like the big shows like Stranger Things, I would release like 2 episodes every 2 weeks or something, and kind of milk it a little bit,
Yeah, I guess people probably just think that they want to binge things, and that's kind of maybe the demand, is that like people are kind of hooked on binging things, because that's Netflix started out that way, right? Where they were getting TV shows that already existed, so they just threw it all up. And so it's just what people are used to. I agree. I feel like the better experience once you got used to it and decided to do it was to like watch something like week to week, especially with like you said, Stranger Things, or something where you can actually think about, what's happening, what does this mean, what's going to happen next. Like,
exactly.
Binging really hurts that kind of show.
Exactly.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure. Stranger Things may actually benefit from binging because sometimes I think, or certain shows I think benefit from binging because if you have too much time to think about them, it kind of
they don't hold up.
They don't hold up. But if you can binge it all, you've already moved past the plot holes by the time you're thinking about it, right?
Right. So I agree. It kind of depends on the show.
Yeah.
I think with this particular instance with The Handmaid's Tale, I like the week to week, or I like spacing it out. I wouldn't want to binge a show like this. It's a little heavy.
Yeah.
But yeah, season 2 just premiered not too long ago. It's off to a good start, and I'll keep watching for sure. The next show that I wanted to talk about was a show that you and I have already talked about, which is Westworld, which is another show I feel like definitely benefits from the week to week and is not a show that I would recommend binging at all.
I totally agree.
The week to week is half the fun on that show. But I wanted to bring it up briefly just to say that the last episode that played was season 2, episode 4, and it was called The Riddle of the Sphinx. And I think this is probably the best episode of Westworld so far between both seasons.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that, because I've heard the same thing from other people. I haven't seen it myself. I still haven't watched episode 3 of season 2 yet, but I've heard from other people that this episode was amazing.
Well, I don't want to build it up too much because I think you might be disappointed, but I definitely really, really liked this episode quite a bit. I already liked this season more than season 1, but this episode I thought was exceptional.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm exactly right there where I like this season better than season 1 yet. I think it still has room to get there for me. And I really think that this last episode was really, really solid. I think there's some episodes in season 1 that I like just as much. But yes, this is a return to form where the show's back to where I want it to be at.
I would argue it never left that form.
Yeah.
I agree that it makes sense that it's right where you want it to be at again.
Yeah.
But I think I like this jumping around in time and twisting and turning as long as they have content to back it up in. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the content and the actual what we're finding out in this season is all a lot stronger than a lot of the stuff that they were revealing, quote unquote, in season 1.
Right.
So interesting. Yeah, I think that hiatus they took in the middle of filming season 1 and then they kind of planned out the rest of the show. Mm-hmm. I think that was probably the best thing that happened to them.
Right, and then taking their time before season 2.
Right, because I think you can tell when rewatching season 1, there was a lot of stuff that seemed like they kind of changed course halfway through.
Yeah, it'd actually be pretty interesting if you got somebody that didn't know that they stopped, or just tell them, all right, so they stopped filming somewhere in this season, and then somebody watches it for the first time, and then have them pick the episode, where they stopped filming and then went back, because there is definitely, you can tell they turn a corner and they change things a little bit.
For the better.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, season 2 of Westworld, I know everyone's talking about this show, so you probably don't need us to tell you about it. But if you haven't seen it yet, definitely do. It's the closest thing I can think of like the week-to-week enjoyment of Lost. Like the figuring out what's going to come next, getting on the internet, looking at theories. There hasn't been any other show that I can think of besides Lost that has that kind of fever around it, that fun atmosphere.
Yeah, trying to figure it out before they...
Yeah, where it's all about the conversation and the week-to-week about it,
Mm-hmm. And then it's more than just trying to solve the puzzle before they tell it to you. I mean, there's some, like, really good performances going on in there. Like, Ed Harris is great. And then they're saying some really great things, like with their themes and stuff. Like, so it's more than just a puzzle TV show, It's really great.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of what they're talking about, a lot of what's just starting to come up in the show in the last couple episodes is very timely about what's going on now. So it's sci-fi with stuff to say, well acted, super high production value, and very smartly written. So yeah, Westworld season 2.
Watch it.
And an overly long theme song. Our theme.
No,
title
it's only
sequence.
a minute and a half.
It's too long.
Too long.
No, it's not.
Man, I love that. When the hands pull away from the piano, it's so great.
It's like the most boring thing. That's where Westworld, I really recommend not binging Westworld, because you have to watch that theme song so often, so close together. Rant over.
How about you, Justin? What have you been watching?
You couldn't hear me, but I was rolling my eyes just then.
Yeah. Oh, we heard it.
I thought that's what that was. You got to be closer to the microphone when you do that next time.
My bad.
So while you guys are handing out recommendations and suggesting things that are good to watch, I'm going to steer us in the opposite direction this week and go with a film that I would not recommend watching. And that film is Downsizing, which is the Alexander Payne film starring Matt Damon that came out, I guess it was towards the end of last year, kind of like in the award season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought this film kind of got glossed over for awards and maybe just other things that are much better than it came out. So maybe it got a bad rap, because I had heard that it wasn't that great, but I watched it and let me confirm, it is not great. It is not even good.
Which is disappointing because it has such a fantastic premise, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. So have either of you guys seen it?
I have not.
No.
No? Okay. Well, I guess I'll go over the synopsis, and the premise is that there's a group of scientists from Sweden who perfect a technology that shrinks people down to a very, very small size. And their whole idea that they want to do is have the entire world shrink down, because it's the only way to live on Earth and sustain the Earth and not run the Earth out of resources. So it's basically an attempt to not destroy the world, but it only catches on to some people. And basically Matt Damon and his wife decide to downsize because they're struggling with debt, and the money that they have will buy them a lot more when you're much smaller. They're like multimillionaires in the small world. So that's the premise of the movie, which, as you said, Mike, that's an awesome premise. And to me, when I saw the trailer didn't look that great, but I thought the premise was so good. How could they make a bad movie out of it?
Yeah. That's my thought.
But man, I feel like they just really squandered the opportunity with that idea. Most things that I found interesting about it, they didn't quite touch on, and kind of got sidetracked with a love story that didn't really work and kind of felt out of place. And I didn't really understand it at all. And it's just, there's not enough going on in terms of a plot to keep you interested or hooked. And I forget how long the movie is. It was maybe 2 hours and 15, but it felt like it was about 3 hours long. I struggled to get through it.
Yeah, which is disappointing because I like Alexander Payne.
Yeah, I really like all of his other movies. I'm trying to think of one that I don't at least somewhat enjoy. The Descendants, I think, is really good. I enjoyed Sideways, Election. There's probably some I'm thinking of that I'm not thinking of. I mean,
so do you think this movie's a failure because it fails in like the dramedy tone, or it just fails at everything. You know, I mean, what is it exactly like? Could it have been funnier? Could it have been?
I mean, it could have been funnier. I feel like a lot of their attempts at humor were surrounded by such dark, like kind of mildly depressing things that none of the humor really lands. And a lot of the time, like, borders on not even being a joke. But it seems like maybe they thought it was. It's weird to explain without you guys like having seen it and being able to discuss certain things. But like, it's just like I didn't laugh. I don't think one time during like the entire movie, and I could tell a few places they're trying to make me laugh.
Yeah, it's too bad. I guess I can take that off my list of movies I need to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I want one of you guys to watch it, one of you two, so that I have someone to talk about it with. Because as far as I know,
still want to.
Yeah, you should. That way we can talk about it. But I don't know anybody else who's seen this movie. And as far as a recommendation to anybody listening, then don't watch it.
That was kind of my problem trying to watch it whenever it was in theaters, is the fact that no one else had seen it. And I was like, well, if I hear it's okay to bad, and if I'm going to be the only one I know watching it, then I might as well just not watch it. And so I haven't yet.
Cool. Well, do it and we'll talk about it.
All right.
But yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say about it, I think, at this point.
And that's Downsizing by Alexander Payne.
Are you guys ready to talk about Tully?
Yes.
Chris, no segue this week? No.
Yeah, Chris, are you not
clever?
Are you not ready to talk about Tully?
Tully?
That's perfect segue. Perfect.
You seem like a great mom.
Great moms organize class parties and casino night. They bake cupcakes that look like minions. All the things I'm just too tired to do. Honestly, even getting dressed just feels exhausting. I open my closet and I just think, didn't I just do this?
Yeah, but that's the downside of living on a planet with a short solar day. Although Jupiter's even shorter.
You're like a book of fun facts for unpopular fourth graders.
All right, guys. So, Jason Reitman's Tully, written by Diablo Cody, starring Charlize Theron. We're going to go ahead and do a non-spoiler section and then a spoiler section. But we do recommend that if you haven't seen the movie, you probably just wait and see the movie and come back and listen to this later.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to spoil it, but
yeah, I think this movie is better suited knowing little about it, right? Yeah, just go watch the movie.
All right.
Okay, so the IMDb synopsis of this film, which we quote often and sometimes review, says that Tully is about a tired mother of 3 who hires a night nanny to take care of her newborn, or to help with her newborn. Spot on, IMDb.
Pretty concise.
Good job, IMDb.
Yeah.
That was more than I knew going into this movie.
Yeah, I had seen a trailer for this movie, but did not remember it at all because there was one like scene in the movie that happened, and I was like, oh yeah, that's in the trailer. But that's literally the only time that happened. I didn't remember a single other thing.
I had seen the trailer too, but I didn't really know what it was about.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just kind of
the trailer was
relatively
pretty good.
The trailer is good at teasing.
Yeah, and not giving away too much.
Yeah. So, how do you guys feel about Jason Reitman as a director in general, like going into the film?
Yeah, most of the stuff I've seen from him, I've really enjoyed. Up in the Air, I really like. Thank You for Smoking is really good. I like Juno more than you guys did. It's not my favorite for sure. I'm probably middle of the road on it. But yeah, everything I've seen by him, I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, so I'm right there with you. I really liked Thank You for Smoking quite a bit. I thought Juno wasn't so good, but that was mostly the dialogue. I think Up in the Air is really good, and I think Young Adult is amazing. I think it's so good. And I think all the rest of the stuff I haven't seen, his less popular stuff like Labor Day and like Men, Women, and Children, or his TV show, Casual. I haven't seen any of that, but I hear it's not so good. But yeah, so I was excited to see this movie. It's been a while since I've seen a Jason Reitman movie that I really liked. And, of course, Charlize Theron is always great. So I was looking forward to that as well. And I was actually excited to see another Diablo Cody movie. So yeah, what about you, Justin?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same as you. I didn't like Juno. I will say that I think turning the movie the script that was Juno into the movie that Juno ended up being is a task worth complimenting for Jason Reitman. because, I had a lot of issues with the dialogue and it was kind of unbearable at times, but to make a movie that's still watchable, like I have seen that movie a couple of times despite not liking it, and to turn it into a movie that's still watchable and ultimately was still nominated for Best Picture alongside like No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood, among other things. I think that's a task worth commending, despite me not liking the movie. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Young Adult, I'm with you. Young Adult is my favorite of his. I think it's incredible, and that's also a Diablo Cody script, like Juno and Tully. So I was also excited about this movie, just seeing Diablo Cody and Jason Reitman reunited, because Young Adult is incredible. So yeah, I was excited.
All right, so what did we all end up thinking about the movie, Chris?
Yeah, actually, so I'm really glad. This one could have very easily slid by me, and I'm really glad that we did watch it, because it would have been a shame if I had to let this slip by, right? I think Charlize Theron does an amazing job in this movie, portraying that tired mom that just needs a break. The thing I really like about the movie is there's not necessarily any villains. It's just about living life, and how tough that can be at times. I really bought into the family and was invested into the family. There's one part of the movie where they're all sitting there and Charlize Theron's like smiling and happy, and I was just so worried because the movie wasn't over yet, right? And I was so happy that they were happy, and I knew that couldn't last. So that was really great because I was so invested in it. I really highly recommend that you guys or everybody goes and sees this movie, because I think it's really great. I'm glad that I got to watch it on Mother's Day, which was pretty cool. Made me call my mom immediately after I left the movie theater. But yeah, I think this movie is really great, and I think it deserves everybody's attention.
You should have wanted to call your mom anyways. Why do you need a movie to make you do that?
I mean, I was on the fence before, but then the Tully pushed me over the edge to call her.
Fine. It's Mother's Day. I just watched a movie about moms. I
guess I'll call her, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I called my mom afterwards too, but that was always my plan. Even not knowing what the movie was about, I was like, oh, I'll call her after I get out of the movie, because I went and saw it early, and I want to give her time to sleep in on her day.
Yeah.
All right, so Mike, what did you think?
Yeah, overall, I liked this movie quite a bit. I think Diablo Cody has really grown as a writer. I think she still has her snappy dialogue, but it feels so much more mature than it used to, and so much more grounded. I think Jason Reitman is back in top form in this movie. Like I said, I really haven't seen the movies where he's, that are considered his lesser movies. But this is right there in with what I loved so much about Young Adult. So this movie is right there with me, and it surprisingly has so much more to say than I thought it was going to. It seems like this is a movie a lot about, it's almost like a Judd Apatow movie, but way better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How long was this movie?
An hour and a half.
Yeah, like
nice and breezy.
I think some of the Judd Apatow movies could be cut down to an hour and a half and be significantly improved. So
yeah, exactly. I think like Funny People, I think there's a great movie hidden inside an okay movie somewhere in there. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. But as far as Tully goes, the more I think about this movie after I walk out of it, the more I really enjoy it. It's a very smart script. It's very tight. It's very intelligent. And it's like Chris says, there's no bad guys in this movie. It's all slice of life stuff. And I think if you see it, it is very emotionally rewarding. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you guys. I think it's quite good. I really enjoyed it. It's the kind of movie that I really enjoy, which is, like you said, Mike, it's a slice of life movie. It's very natural. There's no real melodrama to an extent. There's no bad guys. It's just kind of people living their lives, and it's heavy on realism. And I think it's interesting to watch the films of Diablo Cody, and like you can almost like see her growing up and becoming a more mature, and I guess it's probably like mirroring things that she's going through in her life. It's like when she wrote Juno, she was a lot younger and like a blogger, and I imagine Young Adult feels like another step from that. And then it's almost like we're following the journey of her life. I feel like it, because it all feels very personal.
It feels almost kind of like the Sunrise trilogy. It's different stages in her life, right? I mean, they're not necessarily continued, but each one the characters are a little bit older, just like she is. It's almost autobiographical.
It does, yeah. And I think we just see her becoming more and more interested in things and maturing and growing, and like her scripts are getting better, at least in terms of like story and character. The one thing that I will say that I didn't like as far as the writing goes, there wasn't any of like the overly quirky dialogue, but there were a few moments that may be forgivable in the end, which I don't want to get into until spoilers, but there were a few moments where Tully, the night nanny, had these like bizarre facts or like this bizarre knowledge that's like really unique and quirky. And I think there were maybe 2 or 3 of those moments where she seemed to know a lot about what was being talked about or have this like random fact, which it feels like that's a thing I see in like amateur short films and amateur feature films and whatnot. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I think I'm going to push back on you on that. But when we get into spoilers.
Yeah,
I
think
not
I know.
Really a way for me to argue my point. Before the end of the movie, you might think something is a problem that ends up not being a problem later.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just in the process of the movie when they were happening, there were moments that kind of made me roll my eyes a little bit, but that's just while watching the movie. And in hindsight, looking back on the film, that's not as big of an issue for me.
I'd go so far as to say I had those thoughts too, but when I look back on the film, it makes it more of like a plus to the film because it gives me something to think back on later and recontextualize what I thought was bad before.
Right.
Turns out it was just me being presumptuous and and jumping the gun.
Yeah, for sure. So outside of that, the only other thing I want to say about the film is that it did a really great job of, for me, like giving me that anxiety of motherhood and like the things that Charlize Theron was going through. Like there's one point where we see her like standing outside of her car and she just starts screaming. And like when she did that, like the whole time building up to it, I was like, I knew she was going to scream and go back there. And I was like, just scream. Like, you go scream, girl. And just do it. Because I fucking understand. I get it. I feel what you're feeling.
There's a part when she's trying to park a car and her kids are in the car with her and they're like freaking out in the parking lot. And she's just trying to like wait for another car to pull out so she can pull in. Yeah. And they are like screaming and freaking out. And like, there's a point when she just lowers her head and just puts her head on the steering wheel and just has to like take a breather and just like close her eyes while all this chaos is going on around. And then like it cuts to this like wide shot and it's just completely silent. And it looks like so calm.
I love that when they cut away and like inside the car, it's just like this pressure is just pushing down on you, and then it just cuts away and you're like, oh, this is nice and peaceful outside.
And I think that's one of Jason Reitman's like gifts as a director and a storyteller is taking these mundane things like that and like elevating them to the height of like being cinematic and enjoyable, or I guess in this case not enjoyable, but watchable, and not making them boring or uninteresting. Like he doesn't necessarily need that like high concept, high plot stuff going on to make a really interesting movie.
Yeah, I really want to give props to Charlize Theron too. I think she is really amazing in this movie, and she's done this before, but she's really willing to put herself on display in ways that are uncomfortable, or unsexy. A lot of movie stars, I feel like, are unwilling to let themselves be seen in a way that's not flattering. There's one scene where she's just had the baby and she gets up out of the bed and you see that she's just wearing this giant diaper, and it's real and it feels real. And the fact that she's willing to put herself out there as an actress is really great. And on top of that, she does a really great performance. It's not just her willing to put herself out there, but then she's giving a great performance on top of it.
She's never afraid to be in that sort of role where she's not going to end up looking the best.
Yeah.
And that's commendable. I don't know if that's, the norm with most people or anything like that, but, just speaking specifically about her, I appreciate that she does that and respect her for doing that.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things I really appreciate about this movie is the realistic portrayal of a relationship. This is a movie with very little drama. It sounds weird to say. There's a couple red herrings where you think, oh, okay, this is going to be this. I think I know what happens in this scene. It's about to be some marital drama, or someone's about to get disillusioned with something. But they subvert a lot of the things that you think are coming to the movie's credit. there's a couple times in this movie where I thought I knew where it was going, and I was like, man, I don't want to sit through this movie. I know what this is going to be. And then I was so pleasantly surprised whenever the movie threw me for a loop. And yeah, I guess I'll talk more about it when we get into spoilers. I'm ready to get into spoilers whenever you guys are.
Yeah, just before we do that, the only thing is, I guess we've all kind of recommended going to see it. Would you guys recommend going to see it now while it's in theaters? You know, is it a rental? Is it a don't watch?
I would recommend seeing it in theaters. It's not doing very well in the box office, and it needs the support.
And it's great. I mean, it's not... That makes it kind of sound like we're doing it a favor. Do yourself a favor and go see this in the theater, and we can both coexist, you know, like because it's such a great movie that it deserves your money, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I agree with that totally. Go see it and support it. You're not going to get, I don't know, necessarily a better experience by going to see it now, because I don't think it's the type of film that needs the theater to be great. But going to see a movie in the theater is always fun and has its own little feeling, as opposed to sitting and watching it at home and renting it on Amazon or iTunes or whatever. So
yes.
So go see it.
All right. So with that, are we ready to move into spoilers?
Ready.
Okay.
I guess Rosebud is just a piece of the jigsaw puzzle.
I'll tell you what, you know them cigarettes you got up there, I'll tell you all about it. And here we go.
So we were talking earlier about the lack of a villain and the lack of like real drama and things going on in the film. And then Mike, right before we moved into spoilers, you were talking about a realistic portrayal of a relationship. I wanted to ask you guys, how did you feel about Ron Livingston's character? Because when we were saying there's like not really a villain, there's like real moments where he seems like he's almost going to become the villain. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much of that comes from like my own personal opinion and feelings, and how much of that is like there that the movie's giving to me. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. That's kind of what I was partially hinting on earlier. This is just one of the many things that the movie subverts. Like one of the many things that like where I thought I knew where the movie was going, and it turns out I didn't. So like I think you're right to feel that way, because I think Ron Livingston's character is set up to be the bad guy at first, or at least that's where you think it's going. But as the movie progresses, in my opinion, you find out that, you know, he may need to up his game, but he doesn't need to just be a different person altogether. You know, he helps with homework. You know, he provides for them. He works full time. He just leaves all the motherly stuff to her, and she doesn't ask for help.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And he should know better, but she should also ask for help. So I look at it more as like, this is something for both of them to overcome.
Yeah,
but it's not something that they're not easily going to overcome.
Yeah, it's something that they both need to like do some work on and meet in the middle on solving this problem, as opposed to one person's good and one person's bad.
You know, because he does pull his weight in his own eyes. You know, at the end of the movie, there's a scene where he actually says, like, I thought I was doing good. I thought we were fine, you know? And I think, you know, it could be argued that it's his fault for not knowing what's going on.
Well, I think it's tough, because I think depression and mental illness can set you up in a place where you don't necessarily know that you need help, and then and even for the other person, it's kind of expecting a lot for that person to read your mind and to see that you're depressed or upset. And so, yeah, it's just this kind of really complicated situation that they were both in, and neither one of them are necessarily at fault. And I think, yeah, being depressed is a thing that you don't know that you need to ask for help. I don't think she knew that she needed to ask for help, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. She also lied to him, though.
About?
Having a night nanny. Although, I mean, she did not intentionally, but like as far as like his fault in not understanding that she had an issue, like he thought they hired a night nanny who was there.
Well,
so there were moments where it's like he comes in and he says something like that, like, I'm sorry, I should have known, but like also he was told that they actually had a night nanny, and as far as he knew, they did. And also I feel like we don't find out that he does all of the homework and all of this other stuff until pretty late into the movie. Like I feel like it was in that last like third that we find that out.
Exactly.
Because up until that point, it does really seem like Charlize Theron is doing everything.
Mm-hmm. And you're not even sure the husband's being faithful. At least that's the way I was.
Oh, and I never had that thought at all.
See, this is kind of one of the things. I feel like the movie sets it up to where he's always gone, he's always doing stuff. So there's so many times in the movie where I thought, okay, here's where we enter the relationship problem stage of this whole thing, right?
I see, yeah.
At first I thought it was going to be because he was distant and he was always gone, and why is he always gone? You know what I mean? And then that turned out to not be anything. And then when Tully shows up, you think, oh, okay, Tully's going to seduce one of them, you know? And that's where it's going to go from here.
And they even kind of established that was a possibility a little bit at the beginning when she meets her friend from New York.
Yeah, and you realize that, she's bisexual.
They never come out and say it, but there is definitely like a flirtation going on there, or at least I felt that. And I thought that was establishing for later on for the Tully situation.
Yeah, there's like past romantic sexual tension going on. So yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought
right.
too.
So all the seeds are planted, I feel, to make us think we know what we're watching and make us think we know what we're in for. And then I think it so smartly subverts so many of those things that we think we're so used to seeing. You know, the deterioration of a marriage when they're bored and they've had a family for a while. How many movies have we seen where a young girl comes in and messes up the marriage by seducing either the husband or the wife?
Now, Juno?
Yeah, there you go, Juno. So like
young adult?
That was just something I was so thankful we were spared.
Right. Now, there was a moment in this film where I thought that was happening. The threesome scene.
That's because they literally told you that's...
What was that? Yeah.
What was about to happen.
And I didn't really like that scene too much. It sat with me weird.
Yeah, I was really confused as to what was going on, and then the next day, they don't really talk about it. Yeah, but once, of course, I mean, I guess the spoiler is that we find out that Tully is just Charlize Theron's younger version of herself that she's imagining.
Yeah. There is no Tully.
Yeah. Yeah, and once that comes out, it makes the movie a lot better. Actually, I had written down in my notes, before it happened, I was like, Tully is the young Marlowe. Not because I had guessed the ending, but because the theme was that Tully was a young Marlowe, you know. And I really like the reveal. I don't think that the surprise is there like in Fight Club, where it's there to surprise you. It's there and it does surprise you, but it tells you more about the characters. And it actually reveals like this emotional depth to it, I think, that makes it better in that
Absolutely.
way. You know,
It recontextualizes the whole movie.
Yeah, and the surprise doesn't matter to me that much. You know, like whether I guessed, it's not a puzzle box movie, right? It just fits in there so well, and the fact that, you know, like it's her younger self talking to her older self, and I'm not a mother, but I can identify with that. You know, like where am I now, and you know, talking to your younger self, and what were your dreams when you were a kid, and it's just so great.
Yeah, I think that for me, I saw that whole thing coming kind of a mile away. Like, so it wasn't very surprising to me, but I think you're right that that's not the point. Like, it's not about the surprise. It's not about catching you off guard, even though there were like some audible gasps in my theater when people figured it out. But the purpose is to make you think differently about everything you've seen previously. So like, it doesn't matter that you're not surprised, right?
I was going to ask you guys. So, Chris, did you not know until the montage of like all the clips showing like all the places she's been by herself instead of with Tully? No,
there was anytime there's a movie like this and the character doesn't see or interact with anybody else, it's kind of I wouldn't say that I knew that it was going to happen, but I had suspicions. I actually said, and probably to the annoyance of all my other theater goers, but when the reveal happens and she's like, what's her maiden name? I said it with him. I was like, Tully, you know, so I knew what was happening.
You're that person.
Yeah, I was that person. But there wasn't very many people in the theater, so it was all right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how about you, Mike?
If a Chris shouts a spoiler in the movie in an empty theater, did he really shout it?
Did I really spoil it?
I don't know. I don't know what that phrase is. I'm getting confused.
How about you, Mike?
I don't remember exactly when I picked up on it, but it was certainly one of the things that was in my mind. Like, at first I was like, this is going to be a lesbian drama, you know?
Right.
Because she met her old roommate earlier, and that's what it seemed like, and then Tully comes over, and at first, when she meets Tully, she's looking at her body, she's looking at the way she's dressed, and you're like, oh, okay, where's this going, you know? Especially after the quote-unquote threesome scene, where they're in the hot tub, and Tully is telling the older version of herself, like, that, you know, they're talking about fantasies and stuff. And so at that point, you wonder where it's going to go. But I think pretty close to right before they revealed it, I kind of picked up on it too. just because they like all the same stuff. It's all pretty obvious once you start thinking about it. It's just odd because at first you're not really sure that that's the kind of movie you're watching.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what keeps you from outright knowing that that's what's going to happen, is that it doesn't feel like the kind of thing that belongs in this movie. But I did have that thought, and I felt fairly certain that she was going to end up not being real pretty early on, well before like the threesome scene. And so when the threesome scene happened for me, I thought like, I don't even know technically if it was a threesome. It seemed just like maybe Charlize Theron just kind of watched them two, was the implication. But regardless of that, before that scene happened, I had already had it in my mind. So like that scene made more sense watching it in that context, you know? Like it didn't rub me the wrong way as much because I had it in my mind that it might be like, because it did seem very out of place at first. Like it catches you off guard for sure. Like that scene, you're like, I did not see this coming at all. Like, and you don't necessarily understand why Charlize Theron is even okay with what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Like I would go so far as to say like that scene is probably what made me realize it, right? Because the movie would have immediately ceased to be good, in my opinion, had that scene not ended up being what it was. If I had taken it at face value and it ended up being that's what it was, I would have felt like that was Charlize Theron's character was written badly, you know?
Yeah.
Because it comes so out of left field and so quick.
Yeah, that's where I was. It was like, I was like, if it's not the case that Tully is not real, then
we did not leave proper groundwork.
This is not good.
Yeah.
And just super weird, you know, or if it doesn't surprise me in some other totally different way that makes it all work.
Right. Exactly. Because this is not what this movie was about or what I signed up for. You know, because it's a movie about motherhood, and then all of a sudden you're like, what is this? So I agree. But like I said earlier, and I've said so many times, I think that's just a testament to how smart this movie is.
Yeah, another thing I thought was really great and made the movie feel smarter. At the very beginning, she's like, I don't want a night nurse in the house. It's just like a Lifetime movie where the mom ends up walking with a cane at the very end.
Sure.
And then, of course, at the very end, she's walking with a cane after the accident.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah.
But not like, ha-ha, laugh out loud funny.
It was
Just
like
kind of
satisfying.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
Clever.
The other thing I really like, too, is the montage. There's, like kind of two montages. The one where they're driving to New York and they play all the different songs as they're going to New York, and they kind of cut it, and it kind of shows how long it takes to drive there.
Yeah, that was a really great way to like show that trip.
Yeah, getting from point A to point B, and not just like the standard shots. Like we didn't get, at least not to my recollection, we didn't get like that drone shot of New York or something
Right.
to like pass the time. That's kind of like typical of most comedies.
Yeah. I forget the artist that was. Do you guys know who the artist was?
Like Cyndi
music?
Lauper.
Cyndi Lauper, that's who it was.
Yeah.
But it's all from the same album. So all those songs that they played were from the same album. It took like one album for them to get to New York. I thought that was really funny. And then the other montage, the one where she's doing the diapers and stuff, I thought that was really, really great.
Yeah, and that's one of those things I was talking about earlier. It does like a great job of setting up the anxiety of motherhood, or the anxiety that Charlize Theron is going through with motherhood, and like some of the mundaneness, I don't know if that's a word, but mundaneness of it all, and like the repetition.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of one of my favorite parts of the movie is whenever Tully and Charlize Theron's character are like yelling at each other, and Tully is essentially telling her like, no, what are you talking about? Like, you can't see it now because you're in it, but you are living the dream. Like, this boringness and this repetition and this sameness that you hate right now, that's the dream. That's what everyone wants. Like, you get to get older and get into this routine and this rut and start feeling more comfortable in yourself. And I like that, because it's like the older version is wishing she could go back to the young free spirit, and the young free spirit can be a young free spirit because she knows that eventually she wants what the older version of her has, you know? So neither could exist without the other.
Yeah, that's one of those themes that I really liked from the movie, is that whole concept of like, you are living the dream, and there's a part of it that sucks in like a very immediate way, but like if you pull back and you have like the 10,000 foot aerial view of what's going on, like it's pretty great. And I really like that viewpoint on life, you know, and it's something that I feel, and I think, you know, could feel more and could like apply to my own life. It's just one of those things that like really makes you kind of like pull back and examine your own life, which is always fun to come across in a film.
And it's such a smart way to do it too. Like a younger version of you arguing with the older version. But like usually when you see this kind of twist, the younger version is disappointed in some way at the older version, and the older version has to come to terms with how they disappointed their younger self, you know? Or something like that. This is the opposite. This is the younger version being like, you think you're a mess, you think your life is fucked, but I'm looking at it right here. I know how much work you have to do because I'm helping you every night, and I still want it. I'm still jealous of what you have, and I still am telling you to your face that you are missing the point. I thought that whole scene was really moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I think it's interesting that they didn't go into tropes of like finances for the two characters. Like there's a bit of like trying to figure out how to afford an aid for their one son who needs help in school. And there's a bit of like jealousy because they have like the rich, her brother is very rich, but like they're not struggling with finances. So like, I feel like that's smart to leave that out because it almost seemed like they were going to do that at certain points, but that would, to me, that would kind of ruin that whole message of like, you're living the dream and have part of their struggles be like financial.
But see, I think those struggles are implied, but I think it's all smartly left out because it's like the relationship drama aspect of this movie that you don't want to watch. You've seen that before, right? But I think they give you enough of that financial trouble that they're in to where you still feel it, and it's still an aspect of the movie. Like, you know, she doesn't really like her brother that much, and you can tell she loves her brother and her brother loves her, but I think there's a little bit of bitterness because the brother's rich and the brother's well-to-do and she's not. So she looks down on him. Well, and the same with the husband. He's like, oh, he hates me. You know? I don't think we see anything based on what the brother says or does to make us think that he hates that guy. In fact, later in the hospital, he's talking to someone and he says, oh yeah, her husband hates me. So her husband and her brother both think the other hate them. And it's the same thing that's plaguing the marriage in this movie. It's the lack of communication with one another and the lack of understanding one another. I don't know. I just think it's all really smart. It all ties so tightly back in on itself.
Yeah, I think they hint at the idea that they wish they had more money like the brother, but I guess never got the idea that they were struggling to make like the bills every month or anything, you know, immediately like financial problems like that. Like the only issue was like, well, I guess we got to figure out how we pay for an aid because that's, you know, that's probably someone's salary.
Well, sure. I don't think that they're poor, right? But I think they're definitely, there's enough clues to make you think they're struggling with money. They're in a private school that had to have favors pulled in by the brother, the rich brother. You know, they're getting kicked out of that. She's stressed out about that. They don't know what's wrong with their son. They can't afford an aide. They can't afford a night nanny. He has to convince her of even talking about a night nanny as a gift idea, like he's going to cover it. So I think that they're making it, but it very clearly sets up that they have no disposable income. And that husband is working all the time, almost too much, right? Because that's part of what's adding on to the stress. So I think it's in there, but I agree with you that it's in there in just the right amount.
Yeah.
To where it's not tiresome.
Yeah, and it doesn't factor into the whole like you're living the dream thing, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It makes that point like work.
So what did you guys think about the kids in the movie?
Well, I think one thing that I liked about what it said was that they were struggling to keep this kid in a private school. The son, the one who has, I guess it's some sort of level of autism or Asperger's, but they're struggling to keep him in the private school, and they're going to have to get him an aide that's going to stay with him like throughout his entire day and give him one-on-one attention. And towards the end of the movie, they're taking him to a public school. There's at least like a hint that like in the public school, he'll still get care. Like they didn't necessarily need the private school. You know, private school wasn't necessarily the answer for him. And so I kind of like that sort of idea. I don't know that that's like that important, but I don't know. I don't remember too much going on with the daughter. Like the movie's so focused on the newborn that they kind of fall into the background for me personally.
Yeah, there's not a lot going on with the daughter. I did like the karaoke scene.
The karaoke scene was really good, I thought.
Yeah, and also the tree scene, you know, where there's this like ginormous amount of relief when that teacher comes in, you know, he's having a freak out and the teacher's like, you don't have to apologize for anything, you know, like now you're going to be a tree, you know, and the relief you feel from that. is really immense.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. And I like that going to public school wasn't necessarily portrayed as like a huge step down. Like there were upsides to it that came about from it. Then I like that.
I'd go so far as to say, like, the school itself looks like it's all trashy and gross, but it's almost like you get the opposite vibe. It's almost like the movie tries to tell you, like, the private school's full of, like, snobs.
Yeah,
Who
there's a
aren't
hint
going
of
to try
that.
to understand your kid. And the public school, you know, they have to deal with everybody, so they're probably going to be more accepting because they don't get the privilege of being so privileged.
Yeah, they can't choose what kids they take necessarily.
Right.
So I think the last thing that I personally wanted to talk about was how did you guys take the ending? Because when Charlize Theron ends up in the hospital, the doctor asks Ron Livingston, does she have any history of depression or mental illness? And that's what really starts like that thread to unravel, to like show us that Tully wasn't real and it was all in Charlize Theron's head. And so for maybe the first like few minutes into that, I was really keying off of the question of mental illness and depression. And there was sort of an idea of like, oh, she has dealt with kids so long and like the stress of this newborn that she's gone crazy and fallen into mental illness. And I saw it as this big negative thing. But by the end of the movie, I started to think, no, it isn't necessarily saying that she's gone to this downward spiral and ended up in such a worse place. What I kind of felt and what I kind of took it as was a testament to like the strength of a mother and going beyond what like a single person can do and doing so much to take care of like a child and, you know, being kind of superhuman in a sense. Like it felt very almost like complimentary in a way.
Yeah, I think she's put everybody else first to ultimately to her detriment, right? She is ignoring her own self-care and trying to take care of everybody else first, in which she has a break, you know.
Yeah.
And
well, she does the work of two people, literally.
Yeah.
You know, and when she needs to, I guess I also keyed off of what Tully says at one point, because at one point doesn't she say something like, when she's saying she's got to leave and like stop working for Charlize Theron, she's like, you know, I was here while I needed to be, and now I'm going to be gone, right? So to me, it didn't quite at the end of the day read as like mental illness. Look how horribly this whole situation has affected her. It's like, look what she, like when she stepped up to the plate and like accomplished, and like she took care of this when she needed to. What do you think, Mike?
I totally see what you're saying. I took this more as when Tully's talking to her at the end about, hey, you're living the dream. You're in the general idea of what people my age eventually want to accomplish. I took it more as, like, she says something, I think her exact words were, I was just here to bridge a gap. And I think what she's saying is we all need that as we get older. As we get older, we're going to become different people that we don't recognize. And we're going to sit back and we're going to wonder about the people we used to be. And maybe it's through kids, maybe it's not. But I think it's just something that everyone's going to eventually go through, which is that you become someone else and you're going to miss the person you were. And that's just something that's going to happen from time to time. You know, there's not going to be any person who, kids or no, who is 36 and isn't going to remember when they were 26 and be like, what happened to that guy or that girl, you know? But I think this movie so smartly sets up, not necessarily that she in particular is like superpowered, but that she pushed herself too far, and that normal healthy balance of our younger selves that we all try to keep with us as we get older, she was pulling too much on that, and she was getting so exhausted that she was being irresponsible with it. And I think that is just a danger of what can happen. But I think, thankfully, the movie caveats that at the end by saying it's more of a learning experience than anything. It doesn't necessarily mean that her life is over or that the husband messed up so bad that the marriage is over because he neglected her. You know, we all get chances to change and learn and come to terms with that as we get older. That's kind of how I took it. Did that answer your question at all? I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think you're right. I think we see her do something extraordinary in pulling out like what she needs to do to take care of this child, but we also see the point where she goes too far with it, where it goes too far the other way.
Yeah, I think she dipped too far into that well of strength that we all have, which is like that youthful side of ourselves we get in touch with to keep our moods up, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's really good. I mean, it's the things that make me really like the movie, is just like thinking about that sort of stuff and walking away with a lot of that to think about in relation to real life and, you know, our own mothers, you know, and I think that's a hallmark of a good film for me.
At the very beginning, there was this scene where she's in the coffee shop. It's when she meets her old friend, but I really liked how people treat pregnant women very differently. So she decides to order a decaf coffee, and there's a lady right next to her, and she's like, "Oh, you know, there's still trace amounts of caffeine in there." And then the barista was like, "Oh, do you still want it?" And she's like, "Yes." And the lady's and a muffin, and the lady just looks at her, you know, like, "Oh, I can't believe you would do that to your kid," you know. And it's like how just being pregnant puts you in a different bracket, and people judge everything you do.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone tries to like
everyone else knows,
take care of you.
Yeah,
and,
what's
like,
best for you.
Play doctor for you.
Yeah.
And judge you when you don't follow their
ideas.
Advice.
Yeah. Which, by the way, the woman who was in the coffee shop who told her like it's there's trace amounts of caffeine. I know her from 30 Rock. She's like the CEO that's above Alec Baldwin. It's that CEO's daughter.
Oh yeah,
Kathy Geis, and she's like really, really weird on that show and doesn't ever talk. And so like it was super weird to see her talk and say something.
Yeah.
She was actually also in The Leftovers, where she played somebody that didn't ever talk.
Yes, she was. That's yeah. The other time I've seen her,
yeah,
she didn't talk there. So when she started talking like and being like super normal in this, I was like, whoa, that's weird.
I haven't seen 30 Rock in a long time. I didn't remember her at all. I'm sad to say.
Will Arnett. Will Arnett is going to marry her, even though he's gay.
Yeah, I know. I totally remember the character now that you mention it.
Yeah. Okay, so are there any final thoughts anybody wants to give on Tully?
As I talk about it, it gets better and better. I'm not sure where it stands for me right now, but I think it'll probably be in my like top movies of the year.
Yeah, it's got to sit with me.
At least so far.
Yeah, it's got to sit with me for a while before I think I land where I'm going to land, because it's growing and changing.
Yeah,
as I sit on it.
Absolutely. I'm leaning towards Mike, and I think we've actually seen. We're almost to the halfway mark of 2018, and I think we've seen quite a few really good movies that have come out this year.
Yeah. Hopefully, the best movies are still yet to come.
Yes, very much.
I hope so. Actually, it'll be a bad year if the movies we've seen so far are the best. Not to say that they're not good, but hopefully there's
not
more.
Enough.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to our final question, in the spirit of Tully and in the spirit of Mother's Day, which just happened, what is you guys' favorite movie mother? I guess that's the right way to say that. Mother character who is in a movie, or I guess a TV show. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. My favorite mother, I'm going to take it real weird, straight off the top. Leia Thompson from Back to the Future. Really awesome.
Calvin Klein's mom.
Yeah, Calvin Klein's mom. That's right. I love Back to the Future.
Chris likes a mom that's going to hit on him.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I'm not going to go down that path.
If there are any mothers listening, at Casual Cinecast.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed that portrayal. Anyways, I don't know if there's much more to say about it. Everybody knows Back to the Future, and I thought it was a real fun one, a different one than what I figured you guys would pick. So
yeah, Back to the Future is great, and anybody from that movie belongs on any list ever.
That's right. Mike, what is yours?
Okay, so my favorite movie mother would be Ellen Ripley from the Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that more Aliens specific?
Probably Aliens specifically, because that's where she talks about being a mother the most, and she shows her motherly side. But she has a daughter in the first one. She ends up being frozen for like 50 years or something like that, and her daughter ends up dying, and she finds a young girl on a colony that is now an orphan, and her name is Newt, and she forms a motherly bond to Newt, and she protects her under very, very scary circumstances.
So scary.
Like a mother should.
Just like Tully.
Yeah, just like Tully. But the scene I'm thinking about in particular is a classic. I'm sure you've seen it spoofed several times, but just picture Sigourney Weaver in a big, like, metal suit with big claw arms made to lift stuff, fighting a big alien. So it's just best movie mom ever. Ripley.
What about you? What do you think?
Go on, yeah. Beat Ripley, Justin.
Justin, yeah, come on.
I don't think I'm going to beat Ripley in terms of sheer, like, motherdom or motherhood. Whatever that is.
Mothering
and qualities of being a mother. But I'm kind of going with maybe my most enjoyable mother here, and I'm also dipping out of movies and going TV, if that's all right with you guys.
How dare you, sir?
I figured you might when you asked if we could include TV into this category.
Yeah, that wasn't very subtle for me. But yeah, so I'm going to go with Kitty Foreman of That 70s Show, played by Deborah Jo Rupp, who is just a personal favorite of mine lately. I never watched a lot of That 70s Show, but lately I've been here and there binging through That 70s Show. And I just think she is like the shining star of that show, amongst a show of people who are generally kind of shining stars. Like, everyone is really great in it. And I think she's super funny. Her comedic timing is great. She's got a laugh that you want to try to imitate, but really never can quite as well as she does. Do you guys watch That 70s Show or like Kitty Foreman?
I saw it, some of it when it was on. Not for me. I'd go so far as to say I hate that show. I'm sorry to say.
No, that's fair enough. I think there are things that are pretty dividing. I feel like she's kind of universally awesome, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I'm probably in the middle, but I lean towards Mike. But I would say what I have seen of it and her, she's not horrible.
She's fine.
Yeah.
She's got a good voice.
Yeah, that's
the actress herself is charismatic. I just think she's got nothing to work with.
Yeah. Her charisma is great, and she's always like the star of any of the scenes that she's in.
She's a scene stealer for sure.
Yeah. So, and it's the most memorable thing. I always find myself like thinking back on the things that she does the most out of anyone in the show. And while she's not fighting anyone to save her child or hitting on her children at all,
which is really something that's missing from that 70s show.
She's a noteworthy mother. All right, so I guess that's it for this episode.
Right. Nicely done.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. And as always, thanks Jake Wagner-Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
Our next episode is going to be Deadpool 2, starring Ryan Reynolds and others. If you have any questions for us, preferably Deadpool 2 related, or if you have a suggestion for the final question for the episode, please send them our way. Justin, where should they send those questions?
You can follow us and send us questions on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can join our Facebook group, Talk Film with us, at facebook.com/group/Casual Cinecast. Or if you want to email us directly, you can do so at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And also, please don't forget to give us a review on iTunes. Give us a 5-star review. It helps people find the show and discover it and enjoy it just like you all do.
In theory.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yep.
See you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
See you later.